Welcome to FNF Victory Road Draft League Season 2 Team Analysis. In this series, I will be analyzing the teams that participated in the FNF Victory Road Draft League's second season, and this will take place as an interview via call or DM. So in this particular episode of Team Analysis, it was a DM interview, and I interviewed Verocious Victini and the coach Questrequested, aka Quest. So I'll be the only one on the video today recording, but Quest did share some of his thoughts with me via DM, so we'll be talking about that. So first we'll go into Verocious Victini itself, the team name and logo. The logo was because Quest, actually Victini was not on his team this time, but it was his best Pokemon in the last season. It did tie for third place, as you may see on the Victory Road Draft League Season 2 logo, featuring the best 3 Pokemon from the last season. Third place was a tie between Megalopony and Victini. Additionally, Vector is a character that he liked in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the character who is next to Victini, so that forms the logo of Verocious Victini. So we're going to look at the draft that Quest drafted up. Overall, he said that the process itself of drafting was pretty fine. I don't think he got sniped. If he did, I don't think it was really a big deal for him. I know that he does the method in which he drafts as he goes a lot of the time, rather than having a full-fledged draft. So it's harder for him to get sniped than it is for someone like me, for example, who already has a team that I want to use, and if one member of that team is taken, it's like, oh no. But for him, it's a little bit better in that sense, and so I think his process was fine. So overall, the vision that Quest was going for when building this team was that he wanted to build balance. He definitely did get some balance, although I think it departed a little bit away from what he had done last time. With balance, of course, you want to have good offensive and defensive options, and he did have quite a few of them. But he did say that overall, he thought that he could have drafted balance a little bit better. I do believe that part of his drafting process was that a lot of the Pokemon were themed from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I'll try not to give spoilers in case anybody is interested in watching Yu-Gi-Oh!, but for example, I know he drafted Sigilyph because it was thematic with a character he liked named Carly from Yu-Gi-Oh! So he took that approach as well, kind of a referential approach, which I remember talking with him about, and he said, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. It would have been maybe better to think about how the Pokemon synergize with each other. But overall, he still did get some good Pokemon, and I think as the league progressed, he was able to learn how to synergize them a little bit nicer. So some of the fast sweepers he got Mega Aerodactyl, he got Azelf, he got Heliolisk, and Infernape, and Sigilyph even to an extent. So those were kind of more on the offensive with speed. Tapu Bulu, of course, a great wall breaker. Donphan also able to do quite a bit on the offensive side. And then defensively, he had Empoleon, Donphan, Skuntank to an extent, was more support Pokemon, and Goodra. And then support, he had Skuntank, Ariados, and Sigilyph. Sorry, and Spiritomb, I mean. Although Sigilyph could be support too. That's just a very simple breakdown of the team. I think that the S's, Skuntank, Sigilyph, Spiritomb, and then Ariados might have been better as Pokemon with more bulk or that fit on the team a little bit better. But overall, when preparing for his team, he did have quite a few options, and it's hard to prepare for his offensive Pokemon, especially because Azelf, for example, has a lot of coverage. Infernape can go either way or mixed, so it is a little bit challenging to prepare for some of the offensive Pokemon that he packed on his team. Okay, so This is his battle record. He had a 6-4 battle record, and I believe he ended up as 5th place in the regular season and 7th overall, a tie for 7th after the playoffs. So we're going to look into each of these battles. Before that, I asked him a few questions about overall how he did. He did say that it was a challenge using his team properly because he felt it could have been drafted better, and that was probably his hardest challenge in the league, trying to make the team he had work. In terms of the most difficult opponent, he said that Quasimodo was the battle that he felt he was facing the most difficult opponent, and he didn't really have anybody who he was scared to face or excited to face, but he did really want to face Noob Scrub's team and was actually pretty disappointed that he couldn't. I remember last season he actually wanted to face Noob Scrub a lot, and this season he thought he was going to. I thought he was going to as well, but I guess he didn't, so yeah, he did not face Noob Scrub's team, but he did want to. Overall, his record seemed pretty even. Lose one, win one, lose one, win one. But then at the end, he won a few more and was able to get into playoffs. The losses gradually got less bad in terms of differential. His first match was actually his worst. And then the other losses, the next 2 losses were pretty heavy, but the last one wasn't. And then he had a lot of wins. So I think he picked up as the league went on, and I think that's because as the league went on, he was able to get a little bit more comfortable with his team, which initially he felt really lost using. So let's go into the battles themselves. The first battle was versus Moon Drinkers, which is Edgar's team, and this was the hardest battle, I think, in terms of differential, at least, for Quest. Reuniclus having that sweep. The big thing with this battle was that Reuniclus was extremely bulky, and I believe... I forgot which Pokemon had gone down. There's one Pokemon that maybe could have taken on Reuniclus, or if he had packed Toxic, since this was not a Magic Guard Reuniclus, I believe it was a Regenerator Reuniclus. But I think overall he didn't really prepare that well for Reuniclus. Perhaps Spiritomb or Skuntank would have been able to take it out, but no Dark Pokemon came. So Reuniclus was a really big hurdle for him. Once Reuniclus was able to set up an Acid Armor, it wasn't really feasible to take it down on the physical side. And then once it set up a Calm Mind, it was extremely hard to take down on a special side. All that Quest could have hoped for pretty much was a critical hit once it was boosted up. And I don't think that ever came to him. So Reuniclus was able to sweep this time, and it was a pretty tough matchup for him. But they will face later in playoffs, and he definitely will have shown some improvement in that, so stay tuned for that. The second battle was versus Star Conquerors, and this was a win for Quest. Tapu Bulu, of course, doing really well versus this team. Overall, once Dragonite and Marowak Alola went down, it was very hard for Benji to take down Tapu Bulu. There were a couple of moments where Tapu Bulu lived with, like, absurdly small HP, but then was able to get it back with the combination of the grassy terrain and Horn Leech. For example, Mega Blastoise Ice Beamed it, and it almost took it down, but not quite, and then I believe it went down from the Horn Leech. So that was something that he was able to use to his advantage. And then also Heliolisk was really useful for him in this matchup. Heliolisk in facing Rain in general is really good. It can pivot out when it desires, and it hits pretty hard. So overall, this was a pretty good matchup for Quest. So the next battle is versus Pitiful Punching Bags, which is Quasimodo's team. This is the battle that Quest cited having the hardest opponent, and it was actually going pretty well for Quest in the beginning. He managed to use Spiritomb to help him take out Wobbuffet, and Tapu Bulu, I believe, was able to do pretty big damage to quite a few things. I'm not sure if it was Tapu Bulu or something else. It might have been Infernape, maybe, or Azelf, or Heliolisk. Something was doing big damage to quite a few things. So Quasimodo didn't win this as cleanly as the score might suggest. There were a few Pokemon that got harmed by Quest's Pokemon, but Como-O was pretty tough for Quest to deal with. The Substitute especially variant. Once the Substitute went up, Quest was having a lot of trouble, and Como-O was able to use Clanging Scales to Omni Boost and go for the sweep, and that's exactly what happened. I think it used the passivity of Spiritomb to its advantage, so I think Quest probably... I don't think he used Spiritomb after this one. It's kind of an awkward Pokemon to use. It can be good, but it can be taken advantage of as well because of its passivity and its lack of reliable recovery. So on to the next battle. Before we do that battle, we have the trade for Zygarde 10% from Goodra. Quest, when I asked him, he said that he didn't feel like Goodra was really for him. He didn't really give much else details. I think he also saw the success that Tiller had with Zygarde 10% last season and figured that he'd give it a shot. Goodra was a rather nice defensive Pokemon for him, so with this trade, Quest definitely deviated from balance a little bit more into more of an offensive style. But overall, I think that did well for him. Especially since he was not using Goodra that much to begin with, and he just didn't feel it. When you're not feeling a Pokemon, it's better to not have it, I guess. Even if it's a good Pokemon, I think Goodra is a really good Pokemon. It's better to have something that you're comfortable using and know how to use, and I think that Quest was more comfortable using Zygarde. So we go on to the Visionary Tricksters, which is the next battle, and Quest narrowly won that by a 1%, by a +1 margin, I mean. Mega Aerodactyl really taking things for Quest in the beginning, but once it went down, it was able to KO 3 Pokemon. Once it went down, then Quest had a little bit more trouble, and King Fuse started catching up. I believe that Smeargle was responsible for bringing Mega Aerodactyl down to 1% with its Endeavor, but it did not Extreme Speed, so Mega Aerodactyl was able to take it down as well. But then once Mega Aerodactyl went down, Quest was definitely having a hard time breaking through. I believe Zygarde 10% was having a tough time due to Tangrowth. Ultimately, in the end, Heliolisk was able to clinch it, and then Skuntank as well with the Sucker Punch, I believe. But was... No, sorry, not Skuntank. Yeah, it was Heliolisk, because then it died to the Life Orb Recoil. But it was quite the close match. Definitely a very hype one. Heliolisk... I think there was a margin which it wouldn't have taken down a Pokemon. But, yeah, really intense battle. Really close one. Next we have Quest's battle versus Rio Grande Rapidash, which is Ember's team. And this battle, as we'll see later on too in playoffs, this whole matchup is pretty much Milotic versus Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu having an incredible matchup versus Ember's team, and Milotic having an incredible matchup versus Quest's team. So that was the dynamic we first saw. Once Tapu Bulu went down, I forgot what exactly it went down to. It might have gone down to Mega Diancie. But once it went down, Milotic pretty much was impossible to take down. It kept recovering when it was almost dead, and it was burned. So it was very hard to take down that Milotic. And that was Quest's downfall, I think. I think also he burned Milotic at one point with Empoleon. Milotic wasn't holding a Flame Orb in this one, I think it was holding Leftovers, I believe. So having it be able to shrug off any burn damage and also getting burned to increase its defense made the matchup even harder for Quest in this one. So this was Quest's third loss. But we move on to Night Wishy-Washy, which is Quest's third win. So in this one, once again, we see Tapu Bulu being very useful, being able to break through quite a bit of Pokemon. In general, Quest pivoted a lot in this one, which was good for him because he was able to set up a lot of advantage states, and he was hitting relatively hard with those pivots. Heliolisk and Infernape, using U-turn and Volt Switch, both were able to switch out and into Tapu Bulu safely. Tapu Bulu being able to pretty much bulldoze through the team at the end, I believe. Infernape was also really useful for Quest. Actually, I don't think it was a U-turn from Infernape. I think just Volt Switch from Heliolisk. Infernape was actually the nasty plot variant, and even resisted. Its flamethrowers were doing quite a bit of damage after the nasty plot. I believe it did do over half or near half on Mega Altaria, which is pretty crazy. And Fingered Witch was switching into a lot of different Pokemon to try to take it down. But ultimately, it was Life Orb, Recoil, and Mew that was able to take it down. But Infernape really did do a number on quite a few Pokemon. And then afterwards, Tapu Bulu was able to clean up. So this was a pretty good match for Quest. Next is Waterfront Woods. This was a very narrow loss for Quest. Zygarde 10% really was a star Pokemon for Quest in this one. It was able to really hit hard and take down quite a few Pokemon. Sir Roland was actually fumbling, trying to find what to switch into it. At first he switched in Torterra, but then switched in Gallade, who got one-hit KO'd. I believe it might have also taken down Frostlass. So it was pretty intense for Sir Roland to deal with, but Sir Roland managed to come back with Staraptor, taking down two of Quest Pokemon. The last moment in this battle was all between Empoleon and Torterra. And Sir Roland actually had anticipated that and invested just enough speed for Torterra to outspeed an unvested Empoleon. And that's actually what won him the game. That was extremely close. I do believe Empoleon had Ice Beam. Torterra's HP was extremely low. So Quest would have won if it weren't for those EVs, which makes it an extremely close battle and very hype. So it was a very narrow loss for Quest, but Quest was able to jump back next week facing Blitz City Haxorus, which was Colin's team. And in this battle, Donphan was really useful for Quest. It didn't do too much in terms of killing a lot of Pokemon, but it did two very important things. It took down Rotom Wash by using Knockoff and Ice Shard, and it also pressured some switches. And then finally, it took Gramble down a little bit to about 60%, I believe. With those things in place, he was able to also use Empoleon defensively really well, and then switch into Bulu when needed and Azelf when needed. At the end, Azelf was really useful in taking on Megalopony. It seemed actually pretty bulky for what Azelf usually is, but it was able to take out Megalopony, and thus Quest won this matchup. So the next battle is versus I Like Corsola, and this was another win for Quest, breaking the pattern of win-loss, and finally going into a double win at this point. Again, a very close one where Heliolisk manages to barely claim the victory. I believe Heliolisk was the final Pokemon who lived at 5% at the end of this. So that's how close this battle was too. Rotom Heat was extremely useful in this battle for Z-Quigs and Muckalola as well. I believe that Azelf took down Muckalola to enough HP for Heliolisk to be able to KO it with Hyper Voice, but man, was it so close. Another star player in this from Quest was Empoleon. Empoleon used Roar and Scald as well to burn quite a few things. And when Mega Sizzler was trying to set up Swords Dance, it was able to come in and burn it and then roar it away so that it had no more Swords Dance boosts. So that was extremely useful for Quest in this matchup. I think Roar was really smart for him to bring. So then finally we have the final match of the regular season, which is versus Drizzle Boy's team, Harlem Gloomtrotters. And in this one, Quest used Infernape to his advantage. Infernape had an extremely good matchup versus this team overall. Kind of weak to fighting and fire, so Infernape was able to get quite a bit of kills. In the beginning, Drizzle Boy actually recognized this and went for the explosion to try to catch Infernape off guard. But when Quest led with Infernape, he actually U-turned instead of going for the Flare Blitz, and that was what allowed Quest to save Infernape, and that was really smart of him, I think. So that was pretty good for Quest. Later on in the battle, of course, Heliolisk was also useful too. Rhydon is pretty threatening to Heliolisk, but because it gets Surf, it was able to take down Rhydon and I forgot who the other Pokemon was. I believe Silvally. So it was a really good matchup for Quest, I think, and he was able to pull through and claim victory and enter into the playoffs as well. So overall, this is Quest's differentials for his Pokemon. He did use every Pokemon at least once, Goodra and Spiritomb being the only Pokemon that he used only once. And his most popular Pokemon was Empoleon and also Heliolisk. He brought them every time except once. So I had asked Quest what his favorite Pokemon were to use, and he said that, I believe, let me check really quick. So he said Heliolisk and Empoleon, which makes a lot of sense because Heliolisk was able to do quite a bit of damage. It was fast, it was a pivot, it had nice special attack, it was good at countering weather, so overall it was really good for Quest, and I think it totally makes sense why Quest liked it. In terms of Empoleon was a very defensive Pokemon versus a lot of matchups. Empoleon actually was extremely hard to take down for the opponent, and this is compounded by the fact that Grassy Surge actually made Earthquake weakened, so ground Pokemon had a tough time facing Empoleon as well. So Empoleon's defenses were really nice. Even without a Wish Passer and not having access to reliable recovery, Empoleon was able to wall quite a few things. Having leftovers, sometimes Protect was also good for him in recovery. In terms of Pokemon that Quest didn't like using the least, or that Quest liked using the least or didn't like using the most, he said that there actually wasn't a Pokemon that he didn't like using the most. He said that every Pokemon individually was good, and he had like a feel on how to use all the Pokemon, but he said that as a team together with the synergy, he just felt like they weren't really that great. So that was his thought on favorites to use. We do see that some of the more offensive Pokemon got more usage. Empoleon was really the one who got the most usage out of the defensive Pokemon, and then the rest tended to be offensive. So Quest actually was a lot more closer to offense than to defense. I'd say he departed from balance in the way of offense in this league for sure. Tapu Bulu, of course, being his best Pokemon, having a +4 differential and hitting extremely hard. Heliolisk and Zygarde close behind. And then Infernape also gets a special mention for having a lot of kills. Ariados not having any kills and being the worst Pokemon in terms of differential. But even then, -2 isn't that bad, so it was pretty evenly spread, I'd say, the differential for Quest team. So Quest did make it into the playoffs, and we're going to take a look at those sets now. First, the winners quarterfinal set versus Edgar. And going into this, Quest had a lot of pressure because Edgar was the first match he faced, and he lost 6-0. It was or rather 0-6. It was the biggest loss for him in terms of differential, and it was actually pretty tough for him at the start of the league. I remember he was pretty discouraged starting off on such a bad foot. So he had a lot that he wanted to try out in this one to make it. And overall, this was a pretty good set. And another thing was that Edgar actually had made some exchanges. Reuniclus was exchanged for Florges, Lilligant for Golduck, and something had been exchanged. Oh, Tentacruel from Yanshao. So Quest also had to deal with that new team as well. So let's take a look at the set. In the first one, Quest already narrowed the margin of error from a -6 to a -3. Golduck was really useful for Edgar in this one because it was able to set up rain and sweep. It had cross chop, which helped it take care of Empoleon and Heliolisk. And overall, it was a really good choice for Edgar. Excuse me. Braviary was also really good for Edgar. Mega Aerodactyl and Donphan were the Pokemon that got the 2 kills for Quest, which I actually found kind of strange because I don't think Mega Aerodactyl's matchup was actually too great in this battle. But nonetheless, Quest definitely learned from his first week versus Edgar, and he definitely improved a lot. In going into the second match, he managed to close the gap even more, but the 2 Scarf Pokemon that Edgar brought were his biggest trouble, Nihilego and Garchomp. Mega Aerodactyl was actually looking pretty good in this one because it had Hone Claws and it is rather fast. It was able to take down quite a few Pokemon, but Nihilego and Garchomp kept coming in and threatening it, and then eventually I believe Nihilego was the one who took it down. I don't think Quest was aware it was Scarfed until it was too late. Quest also had problems taking down Florges because there wasn't really a dedicated Pokemon that could take down Florges except Skuntank, which I do think was a good trade because he didn't use Skuntank in the first match, but he did use Skuntank to take out Golduck, which, while Golduck did give him a lot of trouble in the first match, I think he definitely needed to save Skuntank for Florges. But overall, this was a good set for Quest. Even though he lost both of his matches, he managed to narrow down the margin by which he lost and showed that he improved with his team and he was really trying out some new things that worked for him versus such a tough opponent. So after losing this set, Quest moved to Losers Round 1, in which he faced Ember, Rio Grande Rapidash. This was another matchup that was really hard for Quest, so he kind of had a hard bracket because he faced 2 of the people that he really struggled with in the regular season. And he started on a good foot, however. Tapu Bulu once again being very vital in this matchup and being able to bulldoze through Ember's team. There wasn't a lot of opposition to Tapu Bulu. Dragalge was a nice counter, but it was being worn down a lot, especially because rocks were up. So he was able to really do well with Tapu Bulu. Empoleon was that Pokemon to face Milotic, and basically he was playing a guessing game of when can I switch out into something that doesn't want to get hit by Scald or Ice Beam, and he guessed correct, and that worked out for him a lot. So he won this first one by a +2. The second one, he actually lost by a -2. And in this one, he was actually looking like he was doing pretty well in the beginning. And at one point, Ember actually left Milotic in versus Tapu Bulu, getting taken down by that Wood Hammer, which dealt massive recoil to Tapu Bulu, which I do think was smart because Tapu Bulu was then put in range. But losing Milotic was very, very tough for him, and I'd say it almost lost him in the match, but not quite. Mega Diancie really came through, though. Once Tapu Bulu was weakened, it was able to sweep through the team. And I think in this one, Quest kind of screwed himself over with the grassy terrain. Of course, it can be useful for yourself for healing, boosting grass moves, and weakening the opponent's Earthquakes. But Quest also had Earthquake on 2 of his Pokemon. So that fact meant that his Earthquakes were weakened when they needed to be strong. And so that was pretty tough for him. But overall, he still played this one well, and it was a very close match. And then finally, the final match versus Ember's team. He lost by a factor of -3. Again, Milotic was really useful in this battle. It managed to take out Tapu Bulu on a switch-in, calling out the switch-in with Ice Beam and also getting a critical hit. After that, it kind of went downward for Quest. Losing Tapu Bulu was just really hard for him in this matchup. It was kind of the Pokemon that he really needed, and Milotic was extremely hard to take down after that. He did manage to take down Milotic, but with Mega Diancie and Crocodile serving as really strong special and physical attackers and sweepers, he wasn't able to win this one. I was really curious to see as to why he didn't bring Heliolisk, because I thought Heliolisk actually would have been pretty good in this matchup for dealing with Milotic, pivoting out, and just in general dealing pretty decent damage to quite a few things, such as Tornadus Therian. But I understand why he didn't bring Heliolisk as well. It is at risk versus things like Crocodile, for example, and it might have trouble breaking through Pokemon like Mega Diancie, and it can be quite frail. So I see why, but I think it would have helped him overall. So, and that concludes Quest's performance in the playoffs. He did manage to get a win, so he didn't leave playoffs without getting at least one W. And overall, he did do pretty well for the league, especially having a team that he didn't feel confident with. So I think that he definitely showed that over time you can learn to use a team even if you don't like it. And he definitely wants to draft a better team next time, and I think he will. I think he actually is going to try to go for more of a balanced team. He tried to draft balance, like he said, this time, but he kind of leaned closer more to offense, and I think having not a lot of defensive switch-ins minus Empoleon and maybe Donphan, and sometimes Tapu Bulu, I guess, too, but not having a lot of reliable defensive switch-ins and Pokemon with good recovery, I think that frustrated him, and I could totally see why, because I felt that too, to be honest. It's really nice having defensive options, in my opinion, so I think he's definitely going to go more for that pure balance like he did in Season 1 last time, instead of going for a little bit more of an offensive team. But overall, it was a good season for him. I think he did still manage to get into playoffs. 7th overall, definitely not bad. 5th in the regular season. And he was really good at scheduling. I just wanted to say that too, because sometimes scheduling with people can be pulling out your hair, and it kind of sucks because I lose a lot of my time because I'm waiting for people to do their matches or schedule them and stuff, and it can be really inconvenient. But he was really good at scheduling. He was pretty good at just being on time for things, and so I appreciate that a lot. And always a pleasure to have Quest, and hopefully we will see his roots go back to balance, or maybe he'll try something new. I don't know, but I just hope that he enjoys the next team he has, because he has so much potential, and he definitely has a lot of interesting strategies up his sleeves. So that was the Questrequested's team, Verocious Victini team analysis. Not sure if we'll see Verocious Victini again in Season 3, or if we'll see a different team name and logo, or I don't know. We'll see. But that was the Verocious Victini team analysis. Thank you for tuning in for this one. This is the first team analysis of playoffs, so we'll be seeing some more playoffs participants coming up soon, so stay tuned for those. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the others in the rest of the league. Until next time, this is Noel from Sun and Friendly, and I'll see you then.